The door explodes inward at exactly 3:17 a.m. Wood splinters scatter across the polished hardwood like shrapnel from a bomb. The frame tears away from hinges that never stood a chance. 3 men pour through the wreckage with the coordinated precision of a practiced invasion. Their flashlights slice through the darkness of the apartment, cutting harsh white beams across walls, furniture, and shadows. Detective Victor Hayes leads the charge, his heavy boots crushing fragments of what used to be a peaceful threshold. His weapon isn't drawn, but his hand hovers close enough to suggest it might be at any moment. Behind him, Sergeant Marcus Drake surveys the destruction, with the cold detachment of a man who's done this many times before. Captain Ronald Webb brings up the rear, standing in the ruined doorway like a general overseeing his battlefield. The woman wakes with a violent start. She bolts upright in bed, silk sheets tangled around her legs, her body frozen in, that half-second of disorientation that exists between sleep and sudden terror. The flashlight beams find her face, blinding her momentarily with their intensity. She's wearing nothing but a white tank top and underwear, vulnerable, exposed, ripped from the sanctuary of rest without warning or explanation. "Hands where we can see them!" Detective Hayes barks the command like a weapon itself. She raises her hands slowly, deliberately, palms facing forward in the universal gesture of non-resistance. Her eyes blink rapidly, adjusting to the chaos that has invaded her home. She takes in the scene with a composure that seems almost impossible, given the circumstances. Overturned furniture, drawers yanked open with violent carelessness, her personal belongings scattered across the floor like confetti at a parade of destruction. And then Detective Hayes's flashlight freezes. The beam locks onto the bedroom wall behind her, illuminating something that makes his breath catch in his throat. Hanging there, pressed and pristine against a wooden hanger, is a navy blue jacket. Gold letters across the back spell out 3 simple letters that change everything: FBI. The light holds steady for 3 long seconds. The room's energy transforms in that instant, though the men try to hide it. Sergeant Drake's breathing shifts, becoming more controlled, more deliberate, the kind of measured respiration that betrays internal panic. The radio on Captain Webb's shoulder crackles with static, filling the silence with white noise that sounds almost like a warning. The jacket hangs there like a silent witness to their intrusion, its gold letters gleaming in the flashlight beam with an authority that transcends any badge these 3 men carry. But they don't stop. They can't stop now. Before we go deeper into this story, take a second and hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. The woman watches them tear through her bedroom with the calm of someone taking mental inventory rather than experiencing trauma. Her eyes track each movement, each violation, each overstepped boundary. Badge numbers get filed away in her memory like photographs. She notes the exact time on her digital clock, 3:21 a.m., and stores it alongside every other detail that will matter later. When Sergeant Drake roughly searches through her dresser, his hands careless with her intimate belongings, she memorizes the contours of his face, the scar above his left eyebrow, the way his jaw tightens when he finds nothing incriminating, the wedding ring on his finger that suggests someone at home trusts this man. Most victims panic in moments like these, she calculates. Detective Hayes moves to her nightstand, his hands operating with the kind of practiced efficiency that comes from repetition. Too much repetition. Too much comfort with this level of invasion. She watches him closely, her eyes never wavering, even as his fingers dance across her personal space. And then she sees it. A movement so subtle it might be missed by anyone less observant. Hayes slides something small into the side pocket of her purse before immediately reaching back in to retrieve it, his face arranging itself into an expression of theatrical surprise. "Well, well," he announces, his voice carrying the false triumph of a scripted discovery. "Look what we have here." The woman's lips curve into the faintest smile, so slight it might be a trick of the shadows. Her federal credentials folder sits in plain sight on her dresser, not 3 feet from where Sergeant Drake stands. They walked right past it without a second glance. On her nightstand, an encrypted phone charges silently, its screen dark, but its memory holding 15 years' worth of federal case files, investigation notes, and documented evidence. Detective Hayes holds up a small plastic bag, letting the flashlight catch the white powder inside. It sparkles in the beam, like evidence of guilt, except it's evidence of something else entirely. Something these men have no idea they've just provided. The woman's fingers trace the edge of her bedsheet, feeling beneath the fabric for something they missed in their hurried search. It's still there, still recording, still capturing every word, every planted piece of evidence, every constitutional violation. The digital recorder hidden in her bedroom lamp has been running since the moment her door exploded inward. Every word, every lie, every illegal act, all of it captured. She knows exactly why they're here. She's known about these 3 men for a very long time, longer than they could possibly imagine. This isn't random. This isn't a mistake. This isn't bad luck bringing the wrong cops to the wrong door. This is the moment she's been waiting for. 15 years of patient investigation, hundreds of documented violations, countless hours of surveillance and evidence gathering. And tonight, these 3 officers handed her the final piece of the puzzle by kicking down her door and planting evidence in plain view of her hidden recording device. The federal case files scattered across her floor tell a different story than the one Detective Hayes thinks he's writing. Those files document his crimes, his partner's crimes, and the systematic corruption that has poisoned this police department for 2 decades. The woman sits straighter on her bed, her voice cutting through the chaos with surgical precision. "I need to see your warrant." Detective Hayes barely glances at her. "We don't need a warrant for a noise complaint, sweetheart." "You do for a search this extensive." Her voice carries an authority that makes Sergeant Drake pause mid-motion, his hands frozen inside her closet. "You've exceeded the scope of any noise complaint investigation by approximately 15 Fourth Amendment violations. Would you like me to enumerate them?" The detective's jaw tightens, his theatrical confidence cracking at the edges. "You some kind of lawyer?" "I know my rights under the Fourth Amendment." She keeps her voice level, professional, like she's conducting an interview rather than being victimized. "This is an illegal search. The evidence you've planted will be inadmissible. The constitutional violations you've committed in the last 4 minutes alone could end your careers." Captain Webb steps forward from the doorway, his presence carrying the weight of rank, if not respect. "Ma'am, we received reports of drug activity at this address." "From whom?" She doesn't blink. "What specific probable cause justified forced entry? What magistrate signed off on this warrant? Or did you skip that constitutional requirement entirely?" The 3 men exchange glances, quick, nervous, looks that betray their growing uncertainty. The question hangs in the air like smoke from a fire they didn't expect to start. Sergeant Drake recovers first, his voice defensive. "Anonymous tip. Said you were dealing." Anonymous tips don't justify warrantless searches of private residences. The woman's legal knowledge flows effortlessly, each case citation delivered with the precision of someone who's memorized the Constitution. Illinois v. Gates established that anonymous tips require corroboration. Mapp v. Ohio made clear that evidence obtained through illegal searches is inadmissible in state courts. And under federal law, What you've done tonight constitutes a civil rights violation under 18 U.S.C. Section 242. Detective Hayes' face darkens. You think you're smart? I think you're violating federal law. The words land like a physical blow. Federal law, not state law. Federal. The distinction matters more than Hayes realizes in this moment, though. He'll understand soon enough. Captain Webb clears his throat uncomfortably. Let's just get her processed. But the woman isn't finished. I need your badge numbers, all three of you. Her voice remains calm, professional, but absolute. You're not in a position to make demands, Sergeant Drake growls. Every citizen has the right to identify officers conducting searches. She looks directly at each man in turn, her gaze steady and unblinking. Badge numbers, now! Detective Hayes' hand moves instinctively to cover his badge, as if he could somehow hide his identity from the woman who will eventually destroy his career. You don't need... The law disagrees. Her calm persistence unnerves them more than screaming ever could. Most suspects they encounter are panicked, confused, easily manipulated into compliance or confession. This woman dissects their procedure like a surgeon examining a diseased organ, identifying every corruption, every failure, every violation with clinical precision. Captain Webb provides his badge number reluctantly, his voice tight. The others follow his lead, because rank demands compliance, even when instinct screams otherwise. She repeats each number back perfectly, cementing them in memory where they'll remain until the day she testifies against these men in federal court. I also need confirmation that your body cameras are recording. Sergeant Drake's hand moves to the camera mounted on his chest. The red light blinks steadily, capturing everything. They're recording, he confirms. Good. She allows herself another small smile, barely visible in the flashlight beams. So, when this goes to federal court, there will be a complete record of everything you've done here tonight. Federal court. There's that word again. Detective Hayes leans closer, invading her personal space with the practiced intimidation of a man who's never faced real consequences. Listen, lady, we found drugs in your house. You can cooperate, or we can make this real hard for you. Are you threatening me, Detective Hayes? The use of his name, pulled from nowhere since he never introduced himself, makes him flinch almost imperceptibly. I'm giving you options. The woman studies his face the way a scientist studies a specimen. Option 1. I confess to crimes I didn't commit, charges that will be dismissed the moment anyone examines the evidence chain. Option 2. You manufacture additional charges to justify this illegal raid. Option 3. You let me go, destroy the planted evidence, and pray I don't remember your badge numbers. The room goes silent except for the static crackling from their radios. You got a smart mouth, Sergeant Drake mutters. I have constitutional rights. The smart mouth is a bonus. Detective Hayes pulls out handcuffs, the metal glinting in the flashlight beam. You're under arrest for possession of a controlled substance. As the cold metal clicks around her wrists, the woman speaks clearly, projecting her voice toward the body cameras that will capture every word. I'm being arrested based on planted evidence. The officers present conducted an illegal search without probable cause or warrant. I did not consent to this search. The substance allegedly found was planted by Detective Hayes, who retrieved it from his own pocket and placed it in my purse at approximately 3:24 a.m. Shut up, Hayes hisses. I have the right to remain silent, but I also have the right to speak. Her voice never wavers, never cracks, never shows even a trace of the fear she doesn't feel. This is a false arrest based on fabricated evidence, and I will be pursuing federal charges against all officers present. Sergeant Drake grabs her arm with unnecessary roughness. Move! She complies, but continues speaking, her voice calm and clear for the recording. Equipment. I'm requesting immediate legal counsel. I'm requesting a supervisor be called to this scene. I'm requesting an immediate review of all body camera footage from this incident. Each request follows proper protocol precisely. Her knowledge of procedure is too perfect, too professional, too practiced to be civilian. Captain Webb studies her carefully, something cold settling in his stomach. Something isn't right here. This woman knows too much. As they lead her through the destroyed living room, she catalogs every violation with the precision of a trained investigator. Excessive force, unlawful entry, evidence tampering, civil rights violations, false imprisonment, intimidation, conspiracy to deprive constitutional rights. The list grows longer with every step toward the front door. Detective Hayes' next question makes Sergeant Drake's hand freeze on her arm. How do you know so much about police procedure? The woman doesn't answer. She doesn't need to. Her federal credentials folder still sits on the dresser, unnoticed and unexamined. But her silence speaks louder than any admission. The planted evidence isn't the only thing out of place in this room. Everything about this woman is wrong. Wrong for a drug dealer, wrong for a victim, wrong for anyone except exactly what she is. At the front door, standing amidst the ruins of wood and broken hinges, Sergeant Drake realizes they've made a terrible mistake. Her questions are too specific. Her language is too precise. Her calm is too complete. Normal people don't quote case law during arrests. Normal people don't request body camera reviews. Normal people don't know federal court procedures or cite specific sections of the United States Code. Detective Hayes pushes her toward the patrol car waiting at the curb. But doubt has crept into his voice, curdling his earlier confidence. You ever been arrested before? No. Then how do you... He stops mid-sentence, unable to finish the question, because he's suddenly afraid of the answer. How does she know everything? How does she remain so calm? How does she speak like a prosecutor rather than a prisoner? How do I what, detective? He doesn't respond. Can't respond. Because the answer might be worse than anything he's prepared to handle. The woman slides into the back seat of the patrol car without resistance. Through the window, she watches them collect evidence from her home. The planted drugs now carefully bagged. The damage they caused now carefully photographed. Everything documented except the truth. But the truth documents itself. Her encrypted phone still charges on the nightstand, its memory intact. Her federal credentials still sit in plain sight on the dresser. Her case files still scatter across the bedroom floor where they fell during the raid. And the digital recorder hidden in the lamp still runs, capturing every second of audio since the moment her door exploded inward. Detective Hayes slams the car door. Through the glass partition, she hears him talking to Captain Webb. Their voices low, but not low enough. Something's off about her. How so? She knows too much. Way too much. The captain glances back at the car, at the woman sitting calmly in custody, her hands cuffed, but her eyes sharp and watchful. Run her name the second we get to the station. Already planning on it. But they've already waited too long, made too many mistakes, left too much evidence, planted too much of their own guilt in a room equipped to capture every illegal act. The woman in the back seat isn't their victim, she's their reckoning. And tonight, after 15 years of waiting, she finally has everything she needs. The patrol car pulls away from the destroyed house at 3:47 a.m. Broken glass glitters in the street lights like scattered diamonds, reflecting the red and blue of police lights that still flash against neighboring windows. The woman, Special Agent Veronica Cole of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, though they don't know that yet, watches her violated home shrink in the rear window. Detective Hayes drives, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Sergeant Drake rides shotgun, his body angled slightly so he can watch their prisoner through the metal partition. Captain Webb follows in a separate vehicle. Standard procedure for what they believe is a high-value arrest. But this isn't standard anything. Veronica uses the reflection in the window to study their faces without being obvious about it. Hayes's jaw works constantly, grinding teeth against whatever doubts are multiplying in his mind. Drake's fingers tap nervously against his knee, a rhythm that suggests barely contained anxiety. The sergeant turns around, his face appearing in the partition's wire mesh like a caged animal in reverse. "You going to tell us what you really do for work?" Veronica doesn't respond. Her eyes remain fixed on the passing streets, memorizing the route, noting the time, cataloging details that will matter when this reaches federal court. Strong, silent type, huh? Drake's voice carries an edge of mockery that doesn't quite hide his unease. Detective Hayes adjusts his rearview mirror, angling it so he can see her face. We'll see how long that lasts. Station has a way of loosening tongues. Through the radio, dispatch crackles with routine calls. Domestic disturbance on Patterson Avenue, traffic stop on the interstate, a noise complaint downtown. The night continues its normal rhythm, ordinary citizens sleeping through ordinary hours, completely unaware of what these three men have set in motion. Veronica hears everything, memorizes everything. The sergeant's voice drops to what he thinks is a whisper, though the partition does nothing to contain sound. Think she heard anything about the investigation? What investigation? Hayes glances in the mirror, then away. You know what investigation. The internal one. A pause stretches between them, filled by radio static and the hum of tires on pavement. She can't know about that, Hayes says finally, but his voice lacks conviction. Nobody outside the department knows about that. Veronica catalogs every word, every admission, every tell. The investigation they're discussing, the one they believe is internal, is actually federal. And it's been building for 15 years. They turn onto Washington Boulevard. The Preston County Police Station glows ahead, a fortress of concrete and fluorescent lighting where they'll attempt to process her into a system designed to make people disappear. Hayes parks in the prisoner transport area. Security cameras track their arrival from multiple angles, recording everything they do. From this point forward, federal agents will subpoena that footage within hours. Listen, Drake says, turning around again. This can go easy or hard. Depends on you. Veronica meets his eyes through the partition, her gaze steady and unblinking. Which option preserves your careers? The question lands like ice water in a warm room. Hayes kills the engine, his hand frozen on the ignition. What's that supposed to mean? It means you should think carefully about your next moves, Sergeant. Every decision from this point forward will be examined by people with the authority to end everything you've built. Drake's laugh sounds hollow, forced. Lady, you're the one in handcuffs. For now. 2 words, simple, quiet, terrifying. Hayes exits first, circling the car to open her door. The handcuffs bite into her wrists as he helps her stand, though helps is generous. His grip leaves bruises she'll photograph later as evidence of excessive force. We're going to teach you some respect, he mutters near her ear, quiet enough that the body cameras might not catch it. But Veronica's memory catches everything. She doesn't resist as he guides her toward the building entrance, but she catalogs every rough grab, every unnecessary push, every violation of prisoner transport protocols. The body cameras record what they see, and she records what they don't. The whispered threats, the excessive pressure, the systematic intimidation. Inside the station, fluorescent lights buzz overhead, with the particular hum of government buildings everywhere. The booking area smells of stale coffee and desperation, scents that have soaked into the walls over decades of processing people into the system. The booking desk officer looks up from his paperwork, a man in his 50s with tired eyes and a nameplate that reads Thompson. What we got? cocaine possession, resisting arrest. Hayes delivers the charges like he's reading a grocery list. Veronica's voice cuts through the routine. I didn't resist arrest. Shut up, Hayes snaps. Officer Thompson's brow furrows. Something in her voice doesn't match the charges. Too confident, too professional, too completely unafraid. I need to make a phone call, Veronica says. That's my constitutional right under the Sixth Amendment, and I'm invoking it now for the record, in front of the body cameras you're all wearing. You'll get your call when we say so, Drake interjects. That's illegal. Denying a detainee their right to counsel is a violation of Escobedo versus Illinois and compounds the civil rights violations you've already committed tonight. Thompson's frown deepens. He's been booking suspects for 30 years, and something about this woman raises every instinct he's developed in 3 decades of police work. Ma'am, you have the right to... She knows her rights, Hayes interrupts, his voice tight with barely contained frustration. She won't shut up about them. Standard booking procedure begins despite the tension in the room. Fingerprints first. Veronica's fingers press against the scanner without resistance, leaving prints that will match federal employee databases within minutes. Photographs next. Front, profile, the clinical documentation of the accused. When they process her wallet, Thompson pauses. Says here you work for the federal government. Hayes' hand freezes over his keyboard mid-stroke. What kind of federal work? Veronica stays silent. She doesn't need to speak. Her employment verification will do that for her soon enough. When Thompson's computer cross-references her information with databases these local officers don't even know exist. Thompson types her information into the system, his keystrokes slow and deliberate. The computer processes the data, reaching out across networks, cross-referencing federal databases that flag certain types of employees. The screen flashes red. Detective. Thompson's voice has changed, becoming careful and precise. You need to see this. Hayes approaches the terminal, his confidence crumbling with each step. He reads the screen. His face drains of color, like water from a broken vessel. The woman's federal ID number has triggered something unexpected. The system flags her as federal law enforcement, not just a government employee, but a 15-year veteran currently assigned to the Public Corruption Unit. The detective's radio crackles with an urgent message from dispatch, but it's too late for urgency. They've already crossed every line that matters. Thompson looks between the screen and the woman in handcuffs, his training kicking in like a survival instinct. Federal officers require different protocols, special notifications, and an entirely different chain of custody. I need to make some calls, he says quietly, already reaching for his phone. Hayes grabs his arm. Not yet. Detective, if she's federal, she's a suspect, nothing more. We treat her like any other suspect until I say otherwise. But the computer screen tells a different story. And computers don't lie the way desperate men do. Veronica watches their panic build with patient satisfaction. She sees the moment they realize their mistake, the exact second their confidence cracks and crumbles. 15 years of investigation, hundreds of documented violations. Tonight's raid was supposed to be their standard operation. Another planted charge against another helpless victim who couldn't fight back. They had no idea what they were walking into. Tonight, they didn't just kick in the wrong door. They kicked in the door of the federal agent who's been investigating them for a decade and a half. Officer Sarah Mitchell reviews the body camera footage alone in the equipment room, her hands trembling as she fast-forwards through the raid. The timestamp reads 3:17 a.m. Door exploding inward, woman in bed, hands raised, calm voice cutting through chaos. Mitchell rewinds, plays it again. Something is fundamentally wrong with this arrest. The woman quotes law like she wrote it herself. She requests badge numbers with the precision of someone who's testified in court 100 times. She knows federal procedures better than most prosecutors Mitchell has encountered. Mitchell pauses the footage, studies the woman's face. No panic, no confusion. Just cold, calculated observation, like she's gathering evidence rather than experiencing trauma. The next clip makes Mitchell's stomach turn. Detective Hayes's hands move too smoothly, too practiced. He slides a small baggie into the woman's purse, then immediately discovers it with theatrical surprise. Mitchell has heard whispers about evidence planning for years, rumors she dismissed because these men trained her, protected her, became her professional family. But family doesn't plant evidence on innocent people. Family doesn't violate constitutional rights. Family doesn't target federal agents investigating corruption. Mitchell fast-forwards to the arrest. The woman's voice cuts through radio static. I'm being arrested based on planted evidence. Clear, direct, legally precise. Mitchell runs the woman's name through the federal database, her fingers hesitant on the keyboard. The results make her blood freeze in her veins. FBI agent, 15 years of service. Current assignment, Public Corruption Unit. The same unit that's been investigating their department. The same unit that's been investigating her colleagues, her friends, her mentors. Mitchell's hands shake as she reaches for her phone. The FBI tip line number is memorized. Required training for all law enforcement officers, though she never imagined she'd use it to report her own people. She dials. Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is Officer Sarah Mitchell, Preston County Police Department. Her voice wavers, but she pushes through. I need to report a federal agent in custody. Silence on the line, then. Can you repeat that? We arrested a federal agent tonight. Detective Hayes, Sergeant Drake, and Captain Webb conducted a raid on her residence. I believe it was intentional. I believe they knew who she was. More silence, punctuated only by rapid typing. Agent's name? Mitchell reads from the database, each word feeling like betrayal and salvation simultaneously. Veronica Cole, FBI Public Corruption Unit. The typing accelerates. Officer Mitchell, where is Agent Cole now? Holding cell. They're trying to process her on cocaine possession charges. Are you certain about those charges? Mitchell closes her eyes, sees the planted evidence, replay against her eyelids. The drugs were planted. I have it on body camera footage. Detective Hayes put the baggie in her purse and then pulled it out like he found it. The FBI agent's voice sharpens, losing its bureaucratic detachment. Do not let anyone delete that footage. Do you understand? Secure it immediately. Yes, sir. We're sending a team. Keep Agent Cole safe. Do not let them transfer her anywhere. The line disconnects. Mitchell sits in the equipment room surrounded by charging body cameras, each device holding fragments of corruption like puzzle pieces she's finally seeing clearly. Her radio crackles with Captain Webb's voice cutting through static. All units, expedite the Cole processing. I want her transferred to county within the hour. Mitchell's blood turns to ice. They're rushing the case, trying to bury her in the county system where federal oversight is more difficult, where paperwork gets lost, where uncomfortable questions go unanswered. She grabs the evidence bag containing Veronica's personal items. Inside, mixed with wallet and keys, are federal credentials. FBI, Special Agent, Veronica Cole. Badge number embedded in gold metal. The same badge number that appears on every internal investigation report filed against their unit. Mitchell pieces it together with growing horror. Agent Cole isn't just any federal investigator. She's the lead investigator. The one whose name appears on surveillance reports. The one who's been building a case for 15 years while these men continued their crimes, oblivious to the net closing around them. And tonight, they handed her everything she needed. Mitchell's conscience wars with her loyalty. These men trained her, protected her. made her the officer she is today. But officers don't plant evidence. Officers don't target federal agents. Officers don't conspire to violate constitutional rights. Her phone buzzes. Text message. From Hayes. Delete the body cam footage. Equipment malfunction. You know the drill. Mitchell stares at the message, at the clear order to obstruct justice, to destroy evidence, to become complicit in everything she's sworn to fight against. She types back, "Copy that." But she doesn't delete anything. Instead, she uploads the footage to a secure federal server, the same server that Agent Cole has probably been using for evidence collection, the same server that will preserve everything these men have done, regardless of what happens to the local copies. If you were in Officer Mitchell's position right now, watching your mentors commit crimes, knowing the truth, but fearing the consequences of speaking it, what would you do? Would you stay silent, or would you risk everything to do what's right? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Captain Webb appears in the doorway, his shadow falling across the equipment room like a threat. "Mitchell, did you wipe that footage?" "Working on it, sir." Webb studies her face, looking for tells, for signs of betrayal, for any indication that her loyalty has wavered. "Good. This stays between us. Understood?" Mitchell nods. "Of course, sir." But Webb's pressure suggests this isn't their first cover-up. The federal investigation rumors suddenly make sense. Not paranoid speculation, but accurate assessment of systematic corruption. Agent Cole isn't just investigating crimes. She's been living among criminals, documenting everything, building an airtight case brick by brick. And Sarah Mitchell just became her key witness. FBI Assistant Director Marcus Rodriguez receives Officer Mitchell's call at his home in Georgetown at 4:23 a.m. His secure phone buzzes on the nightstand, its distinctive ringtone cutting through the silence of pre-dawn darkness. Federal Emergency Protocol. He answers on the first ring, already, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. "Rodriguez." "Sir, this is Agent Cole's handler. We have a situation." Rodriguez is already reaching for his clothes, his mind shifting into operational mode with the practiced efficiency of 30 years in federal law enforcement. Status report. Local police arrested Agent Cole approximately 90 minutes ago. Drug possession charges. The arresting officers are her targets, the same ones she's been investigating for 15 years. Rodriguez's jaw tightens. Veronica Cole is his best undercover investigator. 15 years of flawless service, countless successful cases, an impeccable record built on patience, precision, and an almost supernatural ability to remain undetected. They made her? Unknown, sir, but they planted evidence. We have body camera confirmation from an internal source. The assistant director pulls on his jacket, his movements sharp with controlled urgency. Where is she now? Preston County holding. They're rushing a county transfer, trying to bury her in the system before anyone notices. Negative. Stop that transfer immediately. Rodriguez activates his emergency protocols while still on the phone. Federal Rapid Response, full deployment. Sir, there's more. The handler's voice carries a note of alarm. Agent Cole's emergency beacon just activated. Rodriguez freezes mid-motion. Veronica's beacon only activates in life-threatening situations. It's a fail-safe, a last resort, a silent scream for help that she's never used in 15 years of dangerous assignments. When? 30 seconds ago. The beacon signal appears on Rodriguez's phone screen, GPS coordinates locking onto the Preston County Police Station like a target designator. Full federal response, now. Rodriguez calls his second-in-command while racing toward his car. Operation Clean House is compromised. Cole is in custody. Jesus, how bad. They arrested our lead investigator while she was gathering evidence against them. Either they made her identity or they got incredibly unlucky. And I don't believe in coincidence at this point. Rodriguez's team assembles at the federal building in record time. Tactical units arrive in full gear. Evidence specialists prepare documentation equipment. Internal affairs investigators review everything they know about the Preston County corruption network. The case they've been building for 15 years just became a federal emergency. Agent Veronica Cole doesn't just know about police corruption. She is the corruption investigation. Rodriguez briefs his team in the command vehicle as they race toward Preston County. Agent Cole has been undercover for 18 months in this final phase, but her investigation spans 15 years. Systematic evidence planting, civil rights violations, false arrests, the whole spectrum of abuse under color of law. Tonight's arrest gives us everything we need. How so, sir? They just provided direct evidence of the conspiracy we've been investigating. Body camera footage of evidence planting, documented constitutional violations, and a federal agent as the victim who can testify to everything. The surveillance van positions outside the police station, electronic equipment locking onto internal communications. Police radios crackle with nervous chatter. Officers discussing damage control, coordinating stories, keeping things quiet. Rodriguez listens through federal intercept equipment, recording every word, documenting every conspiracy. Sir, his communications officer reports, we're intercepting destruction orders. They're trying to wipe body camera footage. They're too late. Rodriguez opens Agent Cole's case file. 15 years of documented violations spread across hundreds of pages. The footage was already uploaded to federal servers. Our inside source saw to that. The surveillance van hums quietly, federal warrants already prepared, signed by a federal judge, ready for execution. Director, we have movement inside. They're transferring Agent Cole. Not happening. Rodriguez radios his legal team. Execute the federal warrants, full jurisdiction. The local police are now operating under federal authority whether they know it or not. The local officers have no idea what's coming. For 15 years, Veronica Cole gathered evidence of systematic corruption, planted drugs, false arrests, civil rights violations, careers destroyed, and lives ruined by men who swore to protect and serve. She documented everything with the patience of someone who understands that justice moves slowly, but arrives eventually. Tonight, they handed her the final piece. Rodriguez checks the beacon signal again, still transmitting from inside the police station. Team, leaders, prepare for immediate entry. His radio crackles with confirmations from every position. Federal agents surround the building like a tightening noose. Rodriguez's next order changes everything. All units, federal authority is now in effect. Agent Cole sits alone in interview room 3. Gray walls absorb the harsh fluorescent light, giving the space the feeling of a concrete tomb. The metal table is bolted to the floor. The single chair is bolted to the floor. Everything is designed to make suspects feel small, powerless, trapped. Everything except the woman who sits there now. The fluorescent light flickers overhead like a dying heartbeat, casting shadows that jump and shift with each electrical surge. Veronica tracks the security camera in the corner, its red recording light blinking steadily. Good. Let them record everything. Detective Hayes enters with theatrical confidence, dropping a thick file folder on the metal table, with enough force to suggest intimidation. Let's talk about your drug business. Veronica doesn't respond. Her eyes remain fixed on the camera, ensuring it captures every word of what's about to happen. We found cocaine in your house, Hayes continues, settling into the interrogation like a man who's done this 1,000 times. High-grade stuff. Street value around $5,000. That's felony possession with intent to distribute. Planted evidence. You sure about that? Hayes leans back, his chair scraping against concrete. I watched you plant it, detective. At 3:24 a.m., you removed a plastic baggie from your right jacket pocket, placed it in my purse, then retrieved it 3 seconds later with your left hand. The entire sequence was captured by your body camera, Sergeant Drake's body camera, and my bedroom recording equipment. The words land like hammer blows. Hayes's theatrical confidence cracks, just slightly at the edges. That's a serious accusation. It's a documented fact. Shall I describe what else your body cameras captured? The illegal entry without warrant? The excessive search beyond scope? The threat you made while removing me from the vehicle? Hayes opens his file. Pages of fabricated reports, fictional surveillance notes, manufactured evidence chains. Says here you've been dealing for months. Multiple witnesses observed drug activity at your address. Name one witness. Anonymous sources. Anonymous sources don't exist in federal court, Detective. Anonymous sources can't be cross-examined. Anonymous sources can't meet the evidentiary standards required for conviction. You're building a case on sand, and we both know it. Hayes's confidence continues to crumble, piece by piece. You think federal court is going to save you? Veronica meets his eyes directly, her gaze steady and unflinching. I think federal court is where this ends. Not for me, Detective. For you. The interrogation room door opens. Sergeant Drake enters without knocking, his face tight with poorly concealed panic. He whispers something in Hayes's ear, urgent words that make the detective's expression shift from confidence to concern. Step outside, Hayes orders. They leave her alone in the interview room. Through the thin walls, Veronica hears their heated discussion. The words carry clearly, despite their attempt at discretion. The computer flagged her as federal law enforcement. So what? She's a suspect. She's not just federal, Vic. She's FBI. A pause. Then, the FBI? Public Corruption Unit. The one that's been investigating. I know what unit investigates us. Hayes's whisper becomes a hiss. How long has she been? 15 years, according to the file. Silence. Veronica uses the time to mentally catalog every violation. Miranda rights delayed. Phone call denied. Excessive. Force during transport. Evidence planted in plain view. Constitutional violations stacking like building blocks toward federal indictments. Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far in this story below. I read every single one. What part hit you the hardest? The moment they realized who she was? Or the fact that she'd been watching them for 15 years? Hayes returns alone, slamming the door harder than necessary. Let's try this again. Who supplies your cocaine? I don't use or distribute cocaine. You know that because you planted the cocaine yourself. His fist hits the table. Stop saying that. Stop planting evidence. Hayes leans across the table, invading her personal space with the practiced intimidation of a man who's never faced a suspect he couldn't break. You think you're smart? Think you can outsmart us? Veronica's next statement makes his face drain of color. I think you've been under federal investigation for 15 years, Detective Hayes. I think Operation Clean House has documented every illegal search, every planted charge, every civil rights violation you've committed. And I think tonight's raid just provided the final evidence we needed for federal indictments. The room goes absolutely silent. Even the fluorescent light seems to stop flickering. What did you say? Operation Clean House. That's the name of the federal investigation into systematic corruption in the Preston County Police Department. You didn't know that, did you? You didn't know we've been watching you since before you made detective. Operation Clean House is classified, compartmentalized. Only federal investigators and high-level corruption targets know that name exists. Hayes straightens slowly, his body language shifting from predator to prey. How do you know about your crimes? About the 14 civilians you've framed over the past Decade. About the evidence you planted on Marcus Jefferson, on Denise Williams, on Robert Huang. Veronica recites names from memory, victims she's documented, cases she's compiled, lives destroyed by the man standing before her. I know because it's my job to know. It's been my job for 15 years. Hayes backs toward the door, his hand frozen on the handle. I need to make a call. To Captain Webb or directly to your lawyer? He stops, caught between flight and the terrible realization that flight won't help. You should choose carefully, Detective. Your next decisions matter more than any you've made in your entire career. Hayes flees the room, leaving Veronica alone with her thoughts and the recording camera. Through the walls, she hears frantic phone calls, damage control meetings, panic spreading through the department like wildfire through dry brush. Everything she's been waiting for, everything she's been planning, coming together at last. Officer Mitchell appears in the doorway, her nervous energy barely contained. Ma'am, I brought you water. She sets a paper cup on the metal table. Her hand brushes against Veronica's briefly, deliberate, purposeful. Something passes between them. Understanding. Alliance. Mitchell slips a folded piece of paper into Veronica's palm. Small, discreet, invisible to the camera angle. Veronica waits until Mitchell leaves before reading it. FB, I knows. Help coming. Stay strong. Relief floods through her chest, the first positive emotion she's felt since her door exploded inward at 3:17 a.m. Her backup knows where she is, and they're coming. The interview room door opens again. This time, Captain Webb himself appears, his face arranged into an expression of professional courtesy that masks pure terror. Agent Cole. His voice carries the formal respect he denied her an hour ago. I apologize for the confusion. Agent Cole. Not suspect, not drug dealer, not lady, agent. The pretense has dropped. The game has ended. And everyone in this building knows what comes next. I'd like my phone call now, Veronica says. Of course, right this way. As they walk through the station, Mitchell manages one final act of courage. She slips Veronica's federal badge into her hand, retrieved from evidence, returned to its rightful owner. The familiar weight of the metal settles against Veronica's palm like coming home. 15 years of patient investigation. Hundreds of documented violations. And now, finally, the endgame begins. At exactly 6 a.m., black SUVs materialize around the Preston County Police Station like shadows given form. FBI tactical teams exit in perfect formation, their movements coordinated with the precision of professionals who've practiced this 1,000 times. Federal marshals take positions at every entrance, every exit, every possible escape route. Blue windbreakers with gold FBI letters catch the early morning light. Assistant Director Marcus Rodriguez leads the operation personally. Inside the station, Captain Webb watches through his office window, his coffee growing cold in his hand. They're here, he breathes. Detective Hayes and Sergeant Drake stand frozen in his office, their faces ashen with the realization that their world is about to collapse. Federal agents pour through the front doors like a tide that cannot be stopped. Rodriguez's voice booms across the station with the authority of federal law. Federal Bureau of Investigation. This facility is now under federal jurisdiction. Officers scatter in every direction, some reaching instinctively for weapons, others raising their hands in immediate surrender. The confusion is absolute. The panic is visible. Stand down, Rodriguez commands. All personnel will comply with federal authority immediately. Webb emerges from his office with his hands visible, the posture of a man who knows resistance is futile. Director Rodriguez, this is highly irregular. Captain Ronald Webb, you are under arrest for conspiracy to violate civil rights under color of law. The words echo through the station like thunder rolling across an open plain. Federal agents swarm the building with systematic efficiency. Evidence teams secure computers before anyone can delete files. Technical specialists download body camera footage directly from server archives. Legal experts serve warrants on every department, every office, every individual named in Operation Clean House. Hayes backs against the wall of the booking area, his eyes wild. "This is insane! We're police officers. You can't just—" Detective Victor Hayes. Rodriguez approaches him slowly, deliberately, savoring each word. "You are under arrest for evidence tampering, false imprisonment, and deprivation of rights, under color of law. I want a lawyer." "You'll get one. You'll need one." Rodriguez signals his team. "Bring her in." The front doors open again. Agent Veronica Cole enters the station she left in handcuffs just hours ago. But everything has changed. She wears her FBI windbreaker now, federal credentials displayed prominently against her chest. Her back is straight. Her eyes are clear. Her presence commands the attention of every person in the building. The entire station goes silent. This is no longer the woman they arrested. This is the agent who's been hunting them for 15 years. Rodriguez holds up her badge for everyone to see, the gold medal catching fluorescent light. Special Agent Veronica Cole, lead investigator, Operation Clean House. The shock hits the room like a physical force. Hayes' knees buckle. He catches himself on a desk, his face a mask of horror and disbelief. 15 years. Veronica steps forward, her voice carrying the authority of federal law enforcement, and 15 years of patience finally rewarded. Every illegal search you conducted while I watched and documented. Every piece of evidence you planted while I recorded and preserved. Every constitutional violation you committed while I built the case that would end your career. She pulls out her encrypted phone, the same device that charged silently on her nightstand while they ransacked her home. 2,000 hours of surveillance footage, 300 recorded conversations, 67 documented evidence plantings, 143 civil rights violations. The numbers land like hammer blows. Rodriguez takes over, his voice reaching every corner of the station. Agent Cole's investigation has yielded federal indictments against 23 officers in this department. 23. Nearly half the force. The magnitude of corruption revealed is staggering. Veronica opens her case file, the real case file. 15 years of documentation that these men never knew existed. Detective Victor Hayes, 17 confirmed evidence plantings, 43 illegal searches, 26 constitutional violations, conspiracy to deprive citizens of rights under color of law. Hayes' remaining strength abandons him. He slides down the wall to the floor. Sergeant Marcus Drake, 22 evidence tamperings, 31 false arrest reports, conspiracy to obstruct justice, witness intimidation. Drake slumps against the booking desk, his face the color of old paper. Captain Ronald Webb, conspiracy to operate a criminal enterprise under color of law, systematic violation of citizens' constitutional rights, obstruction of federal investigation. Webb closes his eyes as if he could make it all disappear by refusing to see it. Veronica continues reading, each name another nail in the coffin of corruption, each crime meticulously documented over 15 years of patient investigation. Rodriguez addresses the room. Operation Clean House has documented systematic corruption spanning 2 decades. The timeline stretches back further than anyone imagined. This isn't about recent crimes. This is about institutional rot that has poisoned this department for 20 years. Federal evidence teams wheel out computers, servers, file cabinets, body camera storage, everything that might contain additional documentation of corruption that even Veronica's investigation hasn't uncovered yet. Hayes finds his voice from his position on the floor. We were just doing our jobs. Veronica faces him directly, her expression carrying neither triumph nor satisfaction, only the cold finality of justice long delayed. Planting drugs on innocent people isn't police work, detective. It's criminal conspiracy. Destroying lives to pad arrest statistics isn't serving the community. It's terrorizing it. She activates her phone speaker, playing back audio from the raid. Hayes' own voice fills the station, clear as crystal. Well, well, look what we have here. The sound of the evidence bag being retrieved from her purse. Then Veronica's voice. I watched you plant it. The recording continues. Every word, every threat, every violation captured in digital clarity. Your own body camera betrayed you, Rodriguez explains to the stunned officers. Every frame of footage is now federal evidence. Every word you spoke is admissible in federal court. The pieces click together for everyone watching. Veronica's calm during the arrest wasn't shock. It was strategy. Her legal knowledge wasn't civilian education. It was professional expertise. Her precise questions weren't desperate attempts at defense. They were evidence collection. She wasn't panicking because she knew backup was coming. She was gathering evidence because that's what federal agents do. Rodriguez holds up another device. This digital recorder was hidden in Agent Cole's bedroom lamp. It captured the entire raid, the detective who planted evidence, the sergeant who threatened her, the captain who ordered the cover-up, all recorded, all documented, all admissible in federal court. Veronica's 15-year investigation culminates in this moment. Every corrupt officer identified, every crime documented, every victim vindicated. The evidence doesn't just show individual misconduct. It reveals systematic criminal enterprise operating under color of law. Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. This moment right here, when they realized that the woman they tried to destroy was actually their destruction, tell me what part of this reversal hit you the hardest. Share your thoughts in the comments. Rodriguez addresses the room one final time. Federal charges will be filed within 24 hours. All officers named in Agent Cole's investigation will be processed and transported to federal detention. The machinery of justice begins turning at last, and Veronica Cole, after 15 years of patient investigation, finally has her case. Webb's corruption file alone is 6 inches thick. The evidence spans 15 years of systematic abuse. Tonight wasn't about drugs or noise complaints. Tonight was about justice delayed finally becoming justice delivered. 6 months later, the federal district court in downtown Washington buzzes with anticipation. Media cameras line the courthouse steps. Reporters jostle for position in the press gallery. The corruption trial of the decade, the trial that exposed systematic police abuse spanning 2 decades, reaches its conclusion. Agent Veronica Cole sits at the prosecutor's table, 15 years of investigation condensed into evidence boxes, stacked 10 feet high along the courtroom wall. Each box represents documented crimes. Each folder represents destroyed lives. Each photograph represents violations that these men committed while wearing badges meant to protect. Judge Patricia Harrison reviews the verdict forms with the gravity the moment demands. 23 defendants, hundreds of charges, systematic corruption exposed and prosecuted under federal law. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreman stands, a middle-aged man in a gray suit who holds the fate of 23 corrupt officers in his hands. We have, Your Honor. Detective Victor Hayes sits in the defendant's chair, federal orange replacing the police uniform he wore for 2 decades. His hands shake as the foreman prepares to speak. This is not how he imagined his career ending. This is not how any of them imagined it. On the charge of conspiracy to violate civil rights under color of law, we find the defendant guilty. Veronica allows herself a small smile. The first guilty verdict in a case built on 15 years of patience. 15 years of watching corrupt men destroy innocent lives. 15 years of documenting every violation while waiting for the right moment to strike. On the charge of evidence tampering, guilty. Hayes' head drops. On the charge of false imprisonment, guilty. His attorney places a hand on his shoulder. On the charge of deprivation of rights under color of law, guilty. 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 Each verdict echoes through the courtroom like thunder. Sergeant Marcus Drake receives 12 years in federal prison. His face remains blank as the sentence is pronounced, as if he's already retreated to some internal place where the consequences can't reach him. Captain Ronald Webb receives 15 years. He stands motionless as federal marshals approach with handcuffs. The man who ran a criminal enterprise, under the color of law, finally held accountable. Detective Victor Hayes draws 20 years. 20 years for the man who planted evidence on innocent people. 20 years for the man who kicked down Veronica Cole's door and tried to frame her. 20 years for crimes that would have remained hidden forever if he'd chosen a different victim. Their badges meant nothing in this courtroom. Their uniforms provided no protection. Federal law applies to everyone, even, especially, those who swore to uphold it. Veronica's testimony sealed their fate. Cool, professional, devastating. She recounted every planted drug charge with the precision of someone who documented it in real time. Every illegal search with the clarity of someone who'd witnessed it personally. Every constitutional violation with the detail of someone who'd been building this case for 15 years. The jury listened with growing horror as the scope of corruption emerged. This wasn't individual misconduct by rogue officers. This was systematic criminal enterprise operating under the protection of badges and uniforms. Think about that for a moment. 20 years of corruption, hundreds of innocent people framed, lives destroyed by men who swore to protect them, and one woman who spent 15 years gathering the evidence to bring them down. If you've been watching this story unfold and it's moved you in any way, take a second to like this video and hit subscribe to RealTales. Stories like this deserve to be told. After the sentencing, Veronica steps into the courthouse hallway. Reporters swarm with microphones extended and questions shouted from every direction. Agent Cole, how long did this investigation take? 15 years of careful documentation. 15 years of watching and waiting. 15 years of believing that justice would eventually prevail. What message does this verdict send? Veronica considers the question, choosing her words with the precision that's defined her entire career. Justice requires patience. It requires courage. It requires people willing to work within the system to change it. She pauses. Truth doesn't disappear just because powerful people want it hidden. It waits for the right moment to surface, and when it does, no badge, no uniform, no position of authority can protect those who've abused the public trust. The reporters scribble frantically. This quote will lead tomorrow's headlines. Officer Sarah Mitchell approaches through the crowd, her face uncertain but hopeful. She testified for the prosecution, turned state's evidence, chose conscience over corruption, even knowing it would cost her everything she'd built in the department. Agent Cole. Veronica turns. Thank you. Mitchell's voice breaks slightly. Thank you for giving me the chance to do the right thing. You made that choice yourself, Sarah. No one forced you to report what you saw. No one forced you to preserve that footage. No one forced you to testify against men who trained you. Mitchell's testimony proved crucial. The insider perspective that corroborated every piece of Veronica's evidence. Her career survived, transferred to federal task force work. A new beginning earned through moral courage when it mattered most. Veronica walks to her car, passing protesters on the courthouse steps. Signs demanding police reform. Community voices finally heard. Families of victims who spent years trying to prove what happened to their loved ones, finally vindicated by federal prosecution. Some changes happen overnight. Others take 15 years of patient dedication. This investigation began with whispered rumors about evidence planting in Preston County. Rumors that most people dismissed. Rumors that Veronica Cole believed. It ended with federal convictions and systematic reform. New. Training protocols implemented statewide. Body camera requirements strengthened. Federal oversight of local police departments expanded. The community healing process begins slowly. Trust rebuilds one interaction at a time, but it does rebuild because the truth finally came out. Veronica's phone buzzes. Assistant Director Rodriguez calling from headquarters. Outstanding work, Cole. The corruption unit wants to discuss your next assignment. Veronica looks back at the courthouse, at the building where justice was finally served after 15 years of waiting. Justice served, but more work waiting. What's the case? Immigration detention facilities in Arizona. Systematic abuse allegations. Documents suggesting violations going back years. Rodriguez pauses. Could take years to build properly. Years of undercover work. Patient evidence gathering. Methodical justice building. I'll take it. This is what she does. This is who she is. Federal agent, truth seeker, justice builder. Reform doesn't happen overnight. But it happens one corrupt system at a time. One patient investigation at a time. Veronica drives away from the courthouse knowing her next case file is already waiting. The work continues. The mission endures. Justice delayed isn't justice denied. Not when truth-tellers persist. Detective Victor Hayes serves his sentence at Coleman Federal Correctional Complex in Florida. 20 years behind bars. 20 years to contemplate every life he destroyed. 20 years to remember the woman whose door he kicked in at 3:17 a.m., believing she was just another victim who couldn't fight back. He was wrong. Sergeant Marcus Drake receives his 12 years at USP Lewisburg in Pennsylvania. The man who threatened Veronica in the patrol car, who whispered intimidation like it was second nature, now wears federal orange instead of police blue. Captain Ronald Webb draws 15 years at FCY Danbury in Connecticut. The man who ordered cover-ups, who instructed officers to destroy evidence, who ran a criminal enterprise under the protection of his badge, finally held accountable for every life his corruption touched. Their victims receive compensation. Not nearly enough to heal the damage. No amount of money can give back years lost to false imprisonment, or restore reputations destroyed by fabricated charges, but acknowledgement that what happened to them was wrong. Legal recognition that they told the truth when no one believed them. Marcus Jefferson, Denise Williams, Robert Huang, Mariah Santos, James Crawford, names that appeared in Veronica Cole's case files. People whose lives were derailed by planted evidence and corrupt prosecution. People who spent years trying to prove their innocence while the system protected the men who framed them. Their criminal records are expunged. Their stories are told. Their suffering is finally acknowledged. The Preston County Police Department undergoes complete restructuring. Half the force faces federal charges. The other half faces mandatory retraining and federal oversight. New leadership comes from outside the department. Officers who weren't part of the corruption, who weren't trained by men who saw citizens as targets rather than people to protect. Body cameras become mandatory. Not just policy, but practice. Footage reviewed regularly, stored on federal servers, protected from the equipment malfunctions that used to make inconvenient evidence disappear. Community oversight boards gain real power. Not advisory committees that issue recommendations no one follows, but genuine civilian authority over police conduct. Trust rebuilds slowly. It should rebuild slowly. Trust that was violated for 20 years doesn't return overnight. Every interaction between police and community becomes an opportunity to demonstrate change, to prove that the old ways are gone, to show that badges now mean protection rather than threat. Some officers resist the changes. They're removed. Some policies face pushback from police unions. The unions lose. Some politicians question whether federal oversight is necessary. The conviction records answer them. Officer Sarah Mitchell rises through the ranks of the federal task force. The woman who chose conscience over loyalty, who preserved the body camera footage that sealed the case, who testified against men who trained her. She becomes a symbol of what police work can be when officers remember who they serve. She trains new recruits now. The badge doesn't make you above the law, she tells them. The badge makes you more accountable to it. Every time you abuse your authority, you make it harder for every honest officer to do their job. You erode the trust that keeps communities safe. The recruits listen. Some of them become the officers this community deserves. And Agent Veronica Cole? She's already in Arizona, 18 months into her next investigation. Another corrupt system. Another group of powerful people who believe their position protects them from consequences. Another case file growing thicker each day, documentation accumulating like evidence of a disease that needs to be cut out. She works patiently. She works thoroughly. She works knowing that justice moves slowly but arrives eventually, for those with the courage to pursue it, and for those who abuse their power and believe they'll never be caught. Her phone holds the evidence. Her memory holds the details. Her dedication holds the mission together. Some nights she dreams of doors exploding inward, of flashlight beams cutting through darkness, of hands planting evidence in her purse. She doesn't dream of fear. She dreams of the moment it all came together, the moment Detective Hayes realized who she was, the moment Sergeant Drake understood what they'd done, the moment Captain Webb closed his eyes because the truth was finally too bright to face. That moment keeps her going. That moment, when 15 years of patient dedication finally yielded justice, reminds her why this work matters, why the slow accumulation of evidence matters, why staying calm when chaos surrounds you matters. Because corruption hides in darkness, but federal agents work in light, and light always wins. Eventually, the community heals, the system reforms, the truth survives, one case at a time, one patient investigation at a time. Justice served through dedication, persistence, and unwavering commitment to constitutional law. Justice served because one woman refused to let corrupt men destroy another innocent life, and spent 15 years ensuring they would never destroy another life again. Hayes will serve 20 years. Drake will serve 12. Webb will serve 15. Their badges rest in evidence lockers now, stripped of authority, symbols of trust betrayed. But Veronica Cole's badge remains pinned to her chest. Gold letters catching Arizona sunlight. FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation. 3 letters that represent a promise that truth will surface, a promise that corruption will face consequences, a promise that the people tasked with protecting the public will be held to the highest standard, or they will be removed from positions of power. Veronica returns to her apartment after another long day of investigation. She checks her phone, reviews her notes, plans tomorrow's surveillance. The work never ends, but neither does the mission. Truth, justice. Federal law applied equally to everyone, even those who wear badges, especially those who wear badges. Because when those sworn to protect become predators, someone must hold them accountable. Someone must document every violation. Someone must preserve every piece of evidence. Someone must wait patiently for the right moment. And someone must ensure that when that moment comes, justice is swift, certain, and complete. Agent Veronica Cole does this work. She has done it for 15 years. She will do it for 15 more. Because the world needs people who refuse to let corruption win. Because communities deserve protectors who actually protect them. Because truth is worth pursuing, even when the pursuit takes decades. And because some doors, when kicked in at 3 a.m., reveal not victims, but warriors. Not targets, but hunters. Not the end of someone's life, but the end of someone's corruption. Detective Hayes learned this lesson too late. His victims finally have justice. And Veronica Cole continues the mission. One investigation at a time, one documented violation at a time. One small step toward a world where badges mean what they're supposed to mean. Protection, service, trust. The light always wins eventually. Sometimes it just takes 15 years. And that's the story of Agent Veronica Cole, a woman who spent 15 years in the shadows, documenting corruption, waiting for the right moment, and finally bringing justice to men who thought they were untouchable. If this story moved you, if it made you think about justice, about patience, about the courage it takes to stand against powerful people who abuse their authority, then I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what part of this story hit you the hardest? Was it the moment she stayed calm while they planted evidence? Was it the 15 years of patient investigation? Was it Officer Mitchell's choice to do the right thing? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you never miss another story from RealTales. We bring you stories like this every week, true accounts of courage, justice, and the human capacity to fight for what's right, even when it seems impossible. Give this video a like if you believe that truth eventually wins. Share it with someone who needs to hear a story about justice delayed becoming justice delivered. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of this community. And thank you for believing that stories like Veronica Cole's deserve to be told. Until next time, this is RealTales. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and never stop believing that truth survives.